I'd like to talk to you about self-employment today and Social Security and Medicare. As you know, with the IRS and all other your banks and everything, being self-employed always has its own little benefits and its own little difficulties. So let's talk about Social Security and Medicare when you're self-employed. Hello, my name is Dr. Ed Weir. I am a former district manager of the Social Security Administration. I've helped out tens of thousands of people over the decades file for retirement benefits, survivor benefits, Medicare benefits, and now that I am retired from Social Security, I am helping people throughout the country do the same, make sure they're receiving everything they're eligible for. Okay. As you know, when you're self-employed, you have to pay your employee portion of the FICA tax, the Social Security tax, is 6.2%. You also pay the employer part of the 6.2% because you are employee and employer when you're self-employed. So you're paying 12.4% for Social Security when you're working. You're also paying into Medicare. Medicare is 1.45%, so double that as well. So that's 2.9% for both of those. So you're paying the 12.4% plus the 2.9% total into Social Security and Medicare. So let's make sure you get that back. One of the things I have noticed through the many years of working at Social Security is if you are self-employed, you and your spouse, let's say for instance, if your wife owns the company, and you work for her, with her, you work together, but she is the main person in terms of filing for taxes. What we often see is whether it's your tax preparer or yourself or whatever the case may be, when you file your taxes, what often is incorrect is that the taxes are paid as a group and everything as the husband and wife, but quite often, more often than I would like to see, is that the Social Security and Medicare parts are not proportioned directly. So I've had many people come in and file for retirement. It's the husband or the wife, and they had a business together for however many decades, and they come in and one of them wants to go ahead and file for retirement. They're different ages or disability or whatever the case may be, and guess what? I tell them, well, I'm sorry, you're not insured. You never paid into Social Security. And what are you talking about? We paid into Social Security for decades and decades and decades. And it turns out that it was only recorded on one of the person's taxes and sent off to IRS. And then what happens is when you file for taxes, submit everything, the IRS notifies Social Security that this is how much this person paid into Social Security and Medicare, and that's how our records. So essentially, our records reflect what the IRS told us, and IRS reflects what you put on there. So that's important, very important. So when you do your taxes, make sure your Social Security and Medicare are proportioned correctly. If you are wondering past years whether they were recorded correctly, all you have to do is go into ssa.gov, set up a My Account through ssa.gov. We always, Social Security always recommends set up a SSA account, My Account. That way you can, print off a 1099, you can check your earnings record, you can change your, direct deposit and phone number and address and all that kind of stuff online. But probably more important than that, it's also a hedge against fraud. If you go and set up your own account, it's more difficult for someone to go in there and pretend to be you and set up an account and change your direct deposit or change your address or whatever the case may be, because if Social Security has your information, your phone number or your email or something like that. If someone goes in there and starts doing something suspicious, you get a text message or an email. That way you can stop it. But if Social Security doesn't have that information, then someone can possibly go in there and pretend to be you and set up an account. So even if you have no intention of ever using it, which most people, they go in there one time and they check everything out and they forget their password and everything like that, and they never use it again. That's fine. But at least Social Security has your information, and that prevents fraud. All right, so go into ssa.gov, set up my account, and the statement that, in the old days, we used to send, Social Security used to send a statement to everybody yearly. This is how much you're going to receive when you retire. At your 62, early retirement, 62, this is how much you're going to receive at 65. If you become disabled, survivor benefits, all that. They stopped doing that because Congress said it would cost too much. So in cost savings, they stopped sending out those. But you can go online and pretty much get the same exact thing. So go online and check to make sure your previous, again, if you're self-employed, husband and wife, both of you go online and with your Social Security numbers and everything, and look at your earnings record throughout your life and make sure everything was recorded correctly. And if it wasn't recorded correctly, if all of this, the earnings were put on one and it should have been put on the other, then you need to consider, what you need to do to fix that, and give us a call or call Social Security directly and tell them, hey, this needs to be fixed, and they will walk you through the process. Okay. All right. Another thing is Medicare. If you are getting close to 65 years old and you have health insurance through work, but your work is obviously yourself, there's a lot of conflicting information out there. There are some tips, tricks, and secrets on getting Medicare when you're self-employed beyond 65. As you understand that if you're 65 years old, you have to go ahead and sign up for Part A or Part B if you're not working and not receiving health insurance from work. So if you don't, if you wait for a year or 2 years or 3 years and you didn't have other credible coverage, then Medicare, Social Security essentially will charge you a penalty, 10% for every 12-month period you did not have credible coverage. And the details and the policy on all of that is kind of obscure. You see a lot of YouTube channels out there and people giving out advice on Social Security and the rest of it. And their qualifications are a National Social Security Certificate Diploma class. I've checked out some of those. They are essentially 2-day online classes. 2-day online classes about Social Security, survivors benefits, lump sum death benefits, disability, working while disabled, early versus late retirement, windfall elimination provision, government pension offset. You can't do that in 2 days. That's impossible. So I think a little bit of information is a dangerous thing. Social Security employees, when they're hired, they go through a 3-month class, at least a 3-month class, every single day, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And then once they're done with that initial class, they're essentially still not fully independent for the first couple of years. Everything, all their cases are essentially reviewed for the first couple of years to make sure everything is correct. And after a couple of years, then they're fully independent and they can make full determinations on their own and all the programs that they're entitled to adjudicate. So that's what I went through. That's what the people on our team, former Social Security employees, and we are here throughout the country to help you navigate the Social Security and Medicare system. So if you have any questions, you need help navigating, you want to sign up for Medicare, early retirement, disability, Medicare Part A, Part B, Part C, Part D, give us a call and we'd be more than happy to help you. We don't charge anything. There's other videos on explain how we pay for this great website and all the rest of it. But we can definitely help you out. One last thing that I've heard some people talk about in terms of self-employment that is no longer around. Luckily, it was a few years ago that stopped. It's called a questionable retirement. Many years ago, it's not that many years ago, I've done several hundred of those myself. Basically, people don't realize that this system is gone. When you're self-employed, you can kind of, adjust your earnings, let's say. So people that file for early retirement, when this questionable retirement system started, if they're like 63 years old, if you're 63 years old, then you're limited to the amount of money you can make. If it's over, certain, like this year, it's around $20,000 or so, a little over $20,000. And anything over that, we hold back Social Security holds back $1 for every $2 you go over. But when people, that's easy if you're working at, some bank or some, big company or something like that, you get a regular, work statement, a regular earnings, a regular check. But when you're self-employed, you can kind of, expense things and everything. So quite a few years ago, they had a system called questionable retirement, where if you came in at 63 years old and you had a company and the Social Security employee taking your claim could actually question your retirement. It says, well, you're making, $200,000 in your company. You're a mechanical engineer, but you're saying that you're not making that money. And I've had many of them. It's like, well, my wife is. And it's like, okay, she's a mechanical engineer? No, she's not. So that was a questionable retirement. But we don't have that anymore. Social Security does not have that anymore. If you've ever heard of, I can't file for, early retirement because I'm self-employed and it's such a nightmare to, do it because they have this questionable retirement situation. Social Security stopped that a few years ago. So there's not that policy around anymore. So again, if you have any questions about self-employment and Social Security, Medicare, survivor benefits, disability, make sure you give us a call, 888-817-0446, or go on to our website, mygovexpert.com, and schedule an appointment. All our help is always free, and we can walk you through the entire Social Security and Medicare process and make sure you receive everything you're eligible for. Thanks, and we'll talk to you next time.